Okay, on the injury front, Taki has an ankle injury. He's day to day. Tay Davis also has an ankle injury. He's day to day. Nick Harris has a knee injury. He's day to day. And then Ronnie Harrison and Wyatt Teller, we'll see on both those guys by the end of this week. And then Jed with the illness. I don't have an update yet today, but I know the doctor was checking in on him. I just haven't heard yet. So we'll see how he does coming out of this. For yesterday, disappointed, obviously. The guys fought like crazy to put themselves in position to go get a win, and we didn't take care of business. We did too many things that are going to cause you to lose a game with the turnover margin, not getting takeaways, 3 fumbles, 7 drops, just was sloppy. And that's just you got to play clean ball on the road, and we didn't do that. So we're going to make sure that we work really, really hard today in these meetings that the players are in as we speak. And we got to own this thing, and we got to make corrections. And today will go a long way in our preparation moving forward. With that, I will take any questions.
Thank you, Coach. The first one will come from Tom Withers.
Thanks, Rob. Thanks, Kevin. Do you have any more clarity, Kevin, on the close contact guys, when they might be able to rejoin you?
Yeah, I think Thursday is the day, provided they all continue to test negative.
Okay. And I know you didn't want to get into specifics yesterday, and you probably don't today, but did guys let their guard down? Was this a situation where maybe they went outside of what the guidelines had been in terms of inside the building, and then this happened?
Yeah, Tom, I'm not going to get into specifics, but it's something that I definitely have addressed with the team, addressed with those players, and we absolutely have to learn from this.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Next is Scott Petrick.
Hey, Kevin, after watching the film, why do you think you struggled running the ball?
First of all, I thought the Jets did a nice job. I thought they had good schemes. Their players did a nice job. I think it's a combination of could have called some better plays, could have designed some better plays, but they did a really nice job. They did not allow us to crease any, especially early.
And yesterday you said when all the guys had to go on the list, it was too late to change the game plan. So was the plan all along to throw more than run?
I wouldn't say that, Scott. I would say we adjusted some personnels. We just didn't have much success early running it. Obviously, you always look back and wonder if you could have run it more. Would that have increased your efficiency? And then in that second half, we got into a 2-minute tempo mode and had some success. So we kind of just stayed in that because we had those touchdown drives there.
Thanks.
Thank you, Scott. Next, we'll go to Jeff Shadell.
Hey, Kevin, Baker, as you know, is really hard on himself after that game. What do you think went wrong? Obviously, he wanted to hold on to the ball, but for him, what do you think, why was there not that rhythm he used to have?
Yeah, Baker is hard on himself. We'll coach him up. I know he'll get better, and he's already looking to get better in these meetings. But it's not one thing, and it's definitely not one person. I think he had some great plays yesterday. Had some plays he wishes he had back. But I have a ton of confidence in him.
Thanks, Jeff. We'll go to Mary Kay Cabot.
Yes, I was going to ask the same thing about Baker, but you talked about feeling like you needed to do a better job of coaching. So when you kind of look at your own performance yesterday, what are some areas that you wish you could do over?
Yeah, I think Mary Kay for me, it's always looking at the result of the play and could I have put the guy in a better position with a better play call, a better play design, a different personnel, the sequence of calls, could that have been better? So, I really do that every week. And I just feel like when you get out of that game, I got to own that thing just like the players. It's not like this is where I'm going to never just blame execution. Okay. I just think we all own this thing. And there's play calls I want back.
I mean, most people are pointing to the 53 passes, and why would you do something like that when I know you went over this a little bit, and why would you do that when Baker didn't have his top 4 receivers? I mean, is there anything that you could have done differently, and is that part of the redo?
Yeah, I think you look at all these games, you pull it apart, and you have some tough conversations about these games. As you can imagine, the plan was not to throw it that often. Uh, in the second half, that's kind of where the game went as we were moving the ball, and we got into 2 minute at the end of the first half. So uh, we felt confident in the plan. Felt confident in the tight ends, the running backs. I thought the wide receivers, acquitted themselves just fine, and we just didn't make enough plays. But you go into it with a plan, and then you got to be ready to pivot and adapt based on what they're giving you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mary Kay. Steve Dorshik is next.
Kevin, one would surmise this is the biggest game of your coaching career, and a couple of questions on that tack. And one would be, do you talk to an inner circle of your friends or family, when you're in big moments like this? A, and B, how are you handling the pressure and the challenge of being in such a big game for the first time in your career as a head coach?
Yeah, Steve, I really think all these games are big games, and all that pressure, is really external. And in terms of who I talk to, I just think I have a really strong coaching staff here. I think we have a really good support group here, and we talk through all those type of things.
Thanks,
Another
Steve. Jake
question I
Trotter.
have is about
Go ahead, Steve.
if the Steelers would elect to play some backups in strategic situations, well, maybe you have to prepare for that regardless. How much extra work does that give you, having to decipher who might be on the field and what their tendencies will be if they play?
Yeah, Steve, I'm going to really concern myself with the Cleveland Browns, and we'll get into our preparation for Pittsburgh in the next couple days.
Thanks, Steve. We'll go to Jake Trotter for our next question.
Yeah, Kevin, you were talking about, wanting certain plays back. It was hard to tell watching it on the TV, but were you trying to call timeout before the quarterback sneak at the end, or did they mix a replay with that play at the end? It was kind of unclear.
No, I wasn't trying to call timeout.
Okay. And then to add to what Steve was saying just now, you guys are a completely different team than week 6. They're a completely different team, and now we don't know, who they're going to play or not. What kind of challenge do you have in preparing for this game on Sunday with so many kind of variables playing into it, including you might not know, who's going to be on the field for them until later in the week?
Yeah, Jake, I think the challenge is playing a really good Pittsburgh Steelers team. They're well coached. They have a bunch of good players. I have a ton of respect for how they play. So we got to have a great week of preparation. But that's the challenge for us is a really good team.
Thanks.
Thanks, Jake. Nate Orrick, you're up.
Hey, Kevin, with the close contacts and Jedrick Wills, I'm lumping them in together. Have they all been negative to this point?
Yes.
Okay. And so we shouldn't take it that the practice squad wide receiver from the Vikings was signed because you guys had a reason to believe one of the receivers won't make it back.
No.
Okay. And then as far as your messaging to the team is concerned, I wanted to ask you, you had this 1-0 mantra each week. Well, now 1-0 is for the playoffs. So does it change anything? And how did you kind of broach the subject today?
Yeah, Nate, I just think, the guys coming off of a loss have made sure that they learn from it this season. And that's where our coaches have to, do a really good job of identifying things that we got to get better at. We got to make our corrections, and then we're going to move on. And we're going to make sure that we're putting all the focus on the work we put in. And that's just how we do things around here.
Thanks, Nate. Tony Gross, we'll go to you.
Hey, Kevin. I know in times of duress, coaches often say you think of players, not plays. And you open the game with Chubb and Hunt on the field together, and then that formation, that whole strategy disappeared. Is it that there's just a limited package you have installed with the two of them together that you couldn't call on those players more often?
Yeah, I think, Tony, as regards to those guys on the field together, that wasn't something that we could wholesale change late in the game. There are moments that we've had them on the field together, and we're going to always explore those opportunities because, like you mentioned, it's two really good football players. But we'll see how the game plan shakes out today, but it just didn't feel like it was fair to put Kareem in a bunch of spots without practice on short notice.
And the two players I want to ask about in particular, Nick Harris, who looked like he had a difficult time more so than the previous game, and your kicker. What are the status of both? Would you consider someone else at right guard this week?
Well, I think Nick battled like he does. I think there were a couple times where they got him. We threw the ball so often in that game for those guys. I thought even with the 4 sacks, I think based on how many times we threw it, I thought the protection was by and large decent. And Nick had his moments in that game. So we'll see how he progresses this week. And as it pertains to Cody, I mean, he knows what's expected of him, and we're counting on him. And I have a ton of confidence in him.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tony. Fred Greetham is next.
Coach, I assume that you have history with Alexander Hollins. Can you talk about what you like about him and what he could bring to your receiving core?
Yeah, so Andrew and his staff do a great job. They're always looking to manage the roster, and Alexander's somebody that I have some experience with, and kind of just told Andrew and his group what you're getting. Tough receiver, good speed, knows the system.
Thank you, Fred. We'll go back to Scott Petrick.
Hey, Kevin, after such a tough loss like that, how much easier is it to put it behind you when you know you have the playoffs if you win on Sunday?
I think, Scott, I try to put them all behind me right after I get off this call and move on. But you got to learn from them. You really do. So I think today is very, very important for me, for the coaches, for the players. It's really important to learn from these. But then you move on, and we got to get ready for a really good football team coming into our building.
And is it comforting to know that you guys have been able to bounce back from all the losses you've had earlier this year, that you've shown the ability to turn that page?
Yeah, I mean, listen, this team's been resilient, and that's going to be required moving forward. That's what it takes this season. So I give a ton of credit to the players. They get it. They own whatever happened the week before, win, lose, or draw. They try and learn from it, and they move on.
Thanks.
Thanks, Scott. Mary Kay Cabot, you're up.
Yeah, just wanted to ask about a couple of defensive guys. BJ Goodson, obviously, he has to sit out this next game as well. And it just seems like, what impact, first of all, did it have not to have your signal caller back there on defense?
Yeah, BJ is the signal caller, like you mentioned, calling the defense, but the other guys practice it as well. So that was nothing new in that regard. So just came from a different voice yesterday.
And then Denzel was also really hard on himself after that game. Was that deserved? Did he need to be that hard on himself?
I think that just speaks to the players we have, Mary Kay, that they have high expectations for themselves. They want to help the team, and they feel like if they come up short, that they're hard on themselves. That's an example of a team player. But again, somebody that I have the utmost confidence in.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mary Kay. Nate Ulrich, you're next.
Kevin, when you're talking about waiting to see kind of later in the week for Wyatt Teller and Ronnie Harrison, obviously got Harrison on the field last week. Will you get Teller out on the practice field this week to figure it out?
I think we'll see how he looks tomorrow, Nate, but I'm hopeful that he'll be on the field Wednesday.
Okay, and this might be kind of similar to some of the things you talked about earlier, but I was wondering, when you're coming up with the game plan with the staff and Alex, and do you kind of have to have two versions of it based on whether you get all these receivers back, or is it that dramatic that you would have two versions and then kind of wait till Thursday to figure it out?
Yeah, I mean, I think listen, I'm hopeful, obviously, but we'll hedge our bets and have a contingency plan should we not. But that's the good news is we have today, tomorrow, Wednesday to plan.
Thanks, Nate. Tony Grossi's next.
Right, Kevin, you said after the game that there just wasn't time to mess with the bulk of the game plan, other than making a few modifications in the parking garage and all that. But if it had happened, I mean, that's what was unique about your thing, is that it happened, you guys were practically boarding the plane. Is it fair to say that if it happened 24 hours earlier, you could have redone the game plan?
Well, I think it was late in the week where you weren't going to get a full speed practice regardless, Tony. Um, you know, yeah, obviously any extra time, any extra lead time would theoretically be a benefit. But I do want to reiterate that's not why we lost yesterday.
Yeah.
We got beat. I got out coached. We have to be better. But we had the players we needed to win that game, and we didn't get it done.
And just to clarify, on the sneak with 118 to go, is that a play that's called by the coach or the quarterback?
Yeah, we had 2 sneaks before that were successful. I think game 4 and 2, and that was a call that we made and Baker executed, but we didn't. So that was unfortunate, but that's something that we'll learn from.
All right, thanks.
Thanks, Tony. We'll go to Jake Trotter.
Yeah, Kevin, we're sort of focused on the game yesterday, for obvious reasons. But kind of looking ahead, how excited are you? How excited do you think your team is with the opportunity to achieve something that has not been done in 18 years in Cleveland and win a game that puts you into the playoffs? How excited are you guys about the opportunity that you still have despite what happened this weekend?
Yeah, like you said, Jake, it's the opportunity, and we've put ourselves in position to have this opportunity. But before we get there, we really have to own this one from yesterday. So I'm not moving there just yet.
Thanks, Jake. We'll take 2 more. Scott Petrick, PJ Ziegler. Scott, go ahead.
Hey, Kevin, I know there's a bunch of factors that go into the run game, but how much have you missed Wyatt Teller in that area?
Yeah, Wyatt's a good player. I understand that, and everybody knows that. But again, I think we trust the guys that are in there. We have high expectations for our offense, for our run game, pass game, really regardless who's in there.
And did you get any sense that, I know you said the talent wasn't the issue, but the guys were rattled at all about the upheaval over those last 24 hours?
No.
Thank you, Scott. Final question to PJ Ziegler.
Thanks, Rob. Kevin, how do you view this week in your perspective, not knowing who's going to be available to you later this week, but also with what's at stake? Is this more of a fun week for you? Is it more of an exciting week for you? Or do you have sleepless nights? How does this week, look for you, and where's your comfort level?
I'll stick to the routine. I think the players here, the coaches understand how we operate, and we will focus on the process of this week, focus on our meetings today as we game plan, really stick to the process that we've put forth this entire season. And then the outside, all those things on the outside that we don't control, we're going to make sure we just kind of keep the focus on our work.